For this video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and experiences on Anubias and Cryptocorynes. Both of these are very popular plants within the aquarium keeping hobby, and both are commonly recommended to beginners. But first, just to quickly go over what's in my tanks. This is my 29-gallon community tank. It's got a range of different plants in there. It currently has 4 Anubias. It used to have 5, but more on that later, and it doesn't have any crypts. This is my 12-gallon guppy tank, and it currently has 8 crypts in there. It doesn't have any Anubias, but it does have different plants in there. But forgive the algae, I am currently in the process of dealing with that. And this is my 8-gallon betta tank. It currently has 4 crypts and 1 Anubias in there, as well as various other plants. So getting into the different varieties out there, and these are just the crypts listed on the Tropica website. Other brands have their own cultivars of these as well now. So there is a wide range of colours, leaf shapes and sizes amongst crypts. This is the specific types of crypt that I have in my own tanks, and I definitely want to get more in the future. I really do like crypts. And these are the types of Anubias listed on the Tropica website, but again, other brands have their own cultivar versions of as well. And there is some limited colour selection, but there's plenty of height and leaf shape selection amongst Anubias. And this is the types of Anubias that I have in my own tank. I will use some in the future, but it will be the larger varieties, but I'll explain why in the video. So starting with the nutritional requirements of the plants, and I have seen people say they keep both crypts and Anubias in tanks where they only use fish waste as nutrients for their plants. Personally, I do like to use liquid fertilizers. My current fertilizer of choice is Tropica Specialist Nutrition. I wasn't a big fan of API Leaf Zone and Tropica Premium Nutrition. The plant growth just didn't seem as good as with the Specialist product, and I just follow the standard dosing instructions on the label for these products. Moving on to lighting, and both crypts and Anubias are listed as low light plants. My 8-gallon tank just uses a standard Aqua stock light that came with the tank, and I really couldn't be happier with this tank. The plants are thriving. And this particular tank has a photo period of 8 hours. The 29-gallon and 12-gallon tanks both use the Nicru C10 light. I do like it. The 29-gallon is definitely seeing better plant growth since I upgraded from its stock light, and both of these have a photo period of around 6 hours right now because they've both had problems with algae. None of my tanks use any CO2 or anything like that. I don't use root tabs either, and the substrate for the tanks with crypts in them is just regular fluval stratum. And my betta fish is actually looking for that granule of food on the left hand crypt in these clips, if you're wondering why she's acting so strange. She knows the food's there, she just can't find it. So both plants are very beginner friendly. Neither really need a lot of additional fertilizer adding to the tank to thrive. Both do well in low light tanks, so there's no need to go out and get some really expensive lighting unit. Like I mentioned, my 8-gallon tank's probably got the best plant growth out of all 3, and it just uses the regular stock light. And there's no need to use CO2 with any of these plants either, so they are great for beginners. Just to quickly show you the tank from this angle, because that crypt on the left and the Anubias Nana Petite in the background, they have similar shaped leaves, but there really is a huge range of crypts and Anubias out there, so there's plenty of selection and variety to choose from. So when it comes to planting, Anubias are epiphyte plants, so you don't actually plant them in substrate like you would a traditional plant, and if the rhizome on the plant does end up buried, then you can have problems. I just glue my Anubias to these little ceramic rings. The same goes for Java Fern, Bulbitis, Bucephalandra and all other epiphytes. It'll sink the plant, keep it above the substrate, while also making it easy to quickly move the plant to a different place in your tank if needed. So Cryptocorynes are planted into the substrate of your tank like a traditional plant would be. I just make sure that the roots of the plant are in the substrate and that the plant won't float out, because some larger crypts do have enough buoyancy to actually lift out of fluval stratum. And then once it's secure in there, I just leave the plant to do its thing. Some people do recommend you add root tabs under the plant, but I don't do that. Both plants do have a slow growth rate though. If you do want something rapid, then get something like Limnophilia seen in this clip. It is such a fast growing plant. I trim it every week and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So moving on to melt, because both crypts and Anubias can have issues with melt. So the center plant here is Bacopa compact, and then there's a crypt to the left and right and slightly behind it to the left, and all 3 of them have had melt. The ones to the left and right are slowly grown, and I mean slowly, it's taken ages, whereas the one to the back left is grown at a much faster pace after it melted right back. And all melt means is when you put the plant into your tank, the leaves will fall off and it'll regrow new leaves in its submerged form. This is another crypt in that same tank on the other side, so it lost most of its leaves. There's that larger one that is from its original leaves, and then these smaller 3 are all new growth after it melted back. And this is just because a lot of these plants are grown out of water, so when you you submerge them, they just need to transform into the submerged form. So this is one of my Anubias that melted, and at one point I think it only had one leaf left, but as you can see there's a few new leaves on there. It is grown, it is very slow with Anubias though, but I am happy to see that there are more and more leaves on this Anubias, letting me know that the plant is still alive. Unfortunately with Anubias there is also rhizome rot. The plant to the left of this frame is Bucephalandra. It's probably going to be my plant of choice for smaller epiphytes moving forward because of this rhizome rot. The little stump is basically an Anubias nana petite, and I think I've had 3 or 4 that have had rhizome rot now, and the plant just dies. This is another Anubias in that 29-gallon tank. I'm not 100% sure on the name of this one. It is a larger Anubias though. The leaves do have some holes and dark patches. That's from the algae breakout that the tank had, but that's under control now, and I am redosing this with liquid fertilizer, so I hope this plant heals those leaves and starts thriving again. And then this is my Anubias coin in the same 29-gallon tank, and I absolutely love this one. It's just thrived since I put it in the tank. It's got great leaf structure, the colours are beautiful, and it just doesn't give me any problems. So there definitely does seem to be something with the smaller Anubias having a higher chance of getting rhizome rot in my experience, but my larger Anubias has a 100% survival rate. So moving on to price, and both Anubias and Cryptocorynes are roughly the same price. There are some specialist types of Anubias that are double the price of normal Anubias in most Cryptocorynes, but I am kind of put off buying them in case the plant gets rhizome rot and just perishes. I'd rather just spend my money on 2 Cryptocorynes, to be honest. I really do like them. But yeah, both plants are generally very budget friendly as far as aquatic plants go. Now personal preference will come into this, and what you actually want your plant for. If you want something on hardscape, then you're going to need to go with an epiphyte, but personally, like I mentioned, I'd go for Bucephalandra for small ones over any of the small Anubias. I've just lost too many of the small Anubias plants to rhizome rot to make me want to take that risk again when all of my Bucephalandra are thriving in my tanks, and I've never even had a Bucephalandra melt on me. But I do want to try some of the larger Anubias just for the larger leaves and the height of the plant in one of my future beta tanks, and maybe my Junglescape guppy tank next year. But I just love crypts. They are so easy. Yeah, they melt as well. You don't have to worry about rhizome rot. My crypts that have melted tend to grow back a lot faster than the Anubias, so you get that little fresh leaf growth to let you know the plant is still alive very quick, whereas it does take a while with the Anubias. So personally, I'm going to be going with Cryptocorynes for the majority of my plants moving forward. I do like them more anyway, just a general look. For these smaller epiphyte plants, I'm probably going to be going over to Bucephalandra like I mentioned. I would like to try Anubias coffeefolia in the future, but other than that, I just don't really have plans for Anubias. I just don't see the point in taking the risk with rhizome rot. Anyway, that brings the video to a close, guys. Hopefully it was helpful. I know personal preference will play a large role in something like that, but I just wanted to share my experiences.